I'm an animal intuitive and sensitive, an animal communicator, and Reiki master practitioner here at animallovelanguages.com. The little shriek you just heard, if you're listening on the podcast version, came from Pearl Cutts. He's my 23-year-old feathered sidekick, and he never misses an episode to you. No, he never misses a chance to blow out my earbuds. And here at Let's Talk to Animals, we are so excited to bring you Babette de Jongh. Did I say that right? De Jongh, Babette de Jongh.
Yes.
Ah, gotta love it. Okay, Dutch, right? Is that what you were telling me? Dutch.
Yes.
We were chatting right before the episode. Babette de Jongh. I love that. That's so cool. Babette is an animal communicator and she is an author. And this is a super interesting juxtaposition we're going to be talking about today, because Babette, you're not just any author. You actually have a fiction series that involves animals as well as an animal communication book. So that is going to be really neat to talk about. If you're arriving here at Let's Talk to Animals for the first time and you're like, what the heck is this all about? Yeah, I'd love to talk to animals, but I don't really know what that means. We are all about demystifying, de-wooing, if you will, animal communication. What is it? How does it work? Who can do it? How do you learn? What does it feel like? How do you know when you're doing it? What can you do with it? And why would you want to tune in to these intuitive pathways? And so every single week, we invite a wonderful guest onto the show to talk about all of these different journeys that we're on together to awaken connections that we share with the world around us, hopefully with the ultimate goal. Oh, I just heard some feedback. Hopefully with the ultimate goal of creating a healthier, happier planet for all of us to enjoy together. So without further ado, nobody's tuning in to hear me talk. I would love to, of course, here on the show, lots of folks that tune in are aspiring animal communicators, maybe beginning animal communicators, some advanced animal communicators, and also intuitive pet parents who want to learn more about what my dog's trying to tell me, what my cat's trying to say, what my parents trying to get across to me, and how to know if that's something that perhaps is happening. So that's why I always like to invite my guests to take us back to the beginning. Just rewind us, if you will, and share a little bit more about how did you find out that animal communication was a thing, that you could do it, and how did you get started?
Okay, well, I've had experiences of animal communication all my life. When I was a young kid, that was just the way it was. You know, I knew what they were thinking. I could see visuals of where they were if they weren't with me. But my parents and other well-meaning adults talked me out of it and said, stop making things up. You know, you can't possibly know that. And a lot of times, you know, it would be something upsetting and they would say, you know, you're upsetting yourself for no reason. So with all of that negative feedback, I just allowed my abilities to go underground and basically forgot. I mean, I still loved animals. Wild animals always came to me. I had a skunk as a pet when I was a kid. I found a raccoon once that I gave to a friend, and she kept him his whole life. So, and he was just like the cats, came and went, you know, freely. So, you know, I always had that connection, but I pushed the communication part of it way down. But as I got older, like as a teenager and a young adult, I would be blindsided by an animal calling for help or, you know, an animal in need. And it was, of course, you know, very upsetting. And people thought I was, the people around me, I would kind of say, well, we've got to help, we've got to do something. And they all said, oh, you're just too sensitive. It's, you know, it's not your business. Don't worry about it. But it happened enough, just being blindsided by it when I didn't expect it, that I decided I wanted to learn more, that I wanted to really learn to accept and hone and control my abilities. So back then there weren't many books available, but I found a book by Penelope Smith, and I started practicing. And so there was a time, this is so long-winded and I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, are you kidding? This is why we're here. This is what we do here at Let's Talk to Animals. We want to hear your journey, your story.
Okay, good. Okay. So I got a job at a pet shop. And I mean, I was an adult. I had kids by this time. They had started school. My background was in teaching. I had taught ballet for decades, and I then taught elementary school. And but I didn't want to go back to that level of commitment. So I got a fun little job at a pet store, and I was practicing what I'd learned in the book from Penelope. And so one of the things that I like to do is pretend that the animals, that they would tell me their names. And so all the animals that came into the pet store, I would ask them what their name was, and they would tell me. And, it was to me a fun game. I was not calling it animal communication at that time. But there was a day when I picked up a puppy that this woman wanted to see. And I took the puppy to her. And as I was carrying the puppy across the room, I heard its little voice in my head say, "My name is Millie." And so I said back, and also, telepathically with no words, "Well, you look like a Millie. Thank you for sharing." But when I tried to hand the puppy over, there was like a kind of a kerfuffle. The puppy didn't want to go. It was clear that it wanted to tell me something else, but it just didn't seem like the right time. I wasn't sure what to do. I handed the lady the puppy, and she played with it for a few minutes, and I asked her if she wanted to take the puppy home. And she said, "No, ever since my dog Millie died, I just haven't had the heart."
Oh,
So
wow.
Missed opportunity big time. And I didn't know what to do, because if I were to say, "Oh, well, this dog just told me her name was Millie," well, that would be crazy, right? So, but anyway, that was my wake up moment. That was when, every hair on my body stood up, and I got my truth meter went off in a big way. Like, okay, this is real. And that was when I convinced myself finally that it was real. And so I actually went online, found Penelope. She was teaching a class, and I took every level of every class that she taught. And I was lucky to be able to take her professional animal communicator class, the last one before she retired.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, it was great. And I highly recommend that anybody who wants to learn, or even already knows, take as many classes as you can, because every teacher has a piece of the puzzle.
I wholeheartedly agree. I was just podcasting earlier today with another wonderful guest, and we were talking about our learning journeys. And I said, I've recently added teaching to my menu of offerings, and yet I will always be a perpetual student. I'm in a class right now. I will always be in classes. I love to read books about animal communication and by animal communicators. And it just always feels like there's something more to learn. And and while yes, it absolutely contributes to the level to which I can serve my human and animal clients, it also feels like I'm contributing to my own understanding of what it means to be a sentient conscious being. I often share the story that when I first communicated with animals, it felt like a part of me woke up that had been there all along. And it's like that I was walking around and I didn't really know who I was at the deepest level. So those of you who are listening or watching and that appeals to you and you're like, I wonder if there's aspects of myself that I haven't even discovered yet. I would venture to bet that the answer is yes. And this podcast, which of course is one of many, 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 many choices you have out there today, perhaps that's why you're here. So just consider that, but I don't want to derail us from your story. So here you are and you're studying and you're learning and you're on your own pathway. And at some point it feels like you made the conscious decision to start offering this to other people and their animals.
Well,
so what was that like?
Okay, I did, but a fellow animal communicator pretty much forced me into it.
Okay, all right.
You know, I didn't trust myself well enough to offer the service to a client. So, but I had an animal communicator friend who booked a dog show. Well, it was a dog fair. And she booked a booth. All the proceeds went to rescue charities. So I felt good about that. And I didn't mind charging for something that was going to go for a good cause. But I still didn't believe I could do it. And yet, she had booked the thing. She couldn't go. She kind of just said, trust yourself, trust your abilities. And she pushed me out there. And I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. I had, I found that it was easy. People were bringing their dogs to me, or sometimes they didn't have their dog and I would just use a photograph. But mostly it was in person. And then this dog came, these people came with this dog. He couldn't care less. And so they didn't really have a problem with them. They didn't have any real questions. And I find that having real questions makes a difference. Better questions get better answers.
That's very true.
But they came in and they said, well, we don't know what to ask. And they said, are you happy? And he's like, yeah, I'm happy. And the whole time he's looking around, looking at the other dogs. Do you like your food? Yeah, I like my food. And he just would not concentrate. He would not settle and communicate. And so I told him, I'm sorry, I'm really not getting anything of value here, and not going to charge you anything. And, if you want to donate to the cause, feel free, but here's my card. If you ever need me, you can, give me a call. And they walked away, and about 25 yards away from the booth, that dog looked back at me and said, well, that was stupid.
Wow. Okay. Nothing like being honest, right?
Yeah. But, well, it was funny. I'm sure that if he needed communication, he would have been happy for it. That's the only animal I've ever had tell me, that they were totally not interested, forget it. But he was a young dog. He had other things to do that day. So it was funny.
Well, the one thing that we always learn in animal communication is how every single animal is unique. There is such a thing as a species consciousness. I'm starting to get very intrigued even by breed consciousness, where it feels like, for instance, we've always kept company with dachshunds, and they're very different than Labrador retrievers that my mother grew up with, or Scotties, which she also was quite familiar with in the home. I mean, every breed has a different personality. There's different reasons why each of us is the way that we are. And so taking a look at that, and then digging down deeper into how that manifests in each individual animal, we start to realize, we're not the only ones that feel not normal or special or just different. That crosses species. We're each absolutely and utterly unique. And that's what makes animal communication fun and also scary sometimes, because
Yes.
we never know. We can't go into the conversation with bringing all of our expectations and assumptions and preconceived ideas along with us. My first animal communication teacher, we didn't use photos. We didn't even, my very first communication ever, she didn't even give us the breed. All we got was a name. And come to find out, I start seeing yellow, scaly skin, realize we're not talking to a dog, and discover that we are talking with an iguana. And I was just delighted. I was hooked. It's like, this is the coolest thing ever. So it works, but it doesn't work in the ways we expect it to work. And it doesn't work using the well-worn pathways of a traditional classroom education. And so it's really important to think about that if you're listening or you're watching today and you're thinking to yourself, do I need to go back to school for this? Wow, I never really loved school the first time. This is totally different kind of learning. It happens much quicker. We're accessing the part of communication that gets perpetually glossed over in school, which is the nonverbal side, the gut instinct side. If you've ever had a hunch, if you've ever just had a feeling about something, and I have yet to meet someone who can't relate to that statement at some level. We've all kind of just, even if it's something as simple as thinking of your friend and then having them call you on the phone, that's, it's almost cliched. It's so common. There's very few of us who haven't had that happen to us, or thinking about somebody and then just running into them at the local Starbucks or the grocery store or wherever, because there's a synchronicity going on at a deeper level. So just be kind of tucking that away in the back of your mind. And one of the things that we'd love to do here at Let's Talk to Animals is talk about all the different applications for animal communication. It's not just doing it professionally and hanging out a shingle and making it your full-time thing. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to invite you on the show, Babette, is because you've done some really cool things. So spoiler alert, I'm not going to be the spoiler. I'm going to let you be the spoiler and share more with us about what you're doing.
Okay, so, and this comes back to really the very beginning of what we were talking about, that animal communication, I don't think we put it this way, but it is a spiritual journey. And it is a way of accepting yourself at a very deep level. The more you talk to animals, the more you learn about yourself. You learn to surrender. You learn to open up, to let down your guard. So you learn a lot about yourself. And so one of the things that I've learned is that I do best when I follow my passion. When I do the things that give me joy and make me happy, even if they're hard, I feel like I'm being true to myself. And so about the same time that I was beginning to accept my abilities of animal communication, I was also writing. And I all my life read romance novels, so I was writing romance. And so I was honing those skills together at the same time. And well-meaning people would say, well, either you need to build your animal communication business or you need to become a writer. You can't do both. If you're putting your energy in one direction, then you are by necessity taking your energy away from another. And how are you ever going to succeed at either one? Your success at either is going to be diminished because your focus isn't there. But I just had a gut feeling that as long as I did the things that gave me pleasure, that my soul wanted to do, that the universe would figure out how it all went together. And that was basically none of my business. So I learned energy healing. I learned to accept and hone and direct my animal communication abilities. And I learned to write. And lo, these many years later, I had already self-published a couple of books. I published a romance novel, and then my book about how to talk to animals. And I was at a writer's conference with a friend to support her because she had a book coming out. And just a random person who knew my work said, you know, you should talk to someone at Source Books. They're publishing things that have, you know, romance with animals. You should chat with them. And they specifically said, you know, that I should speak with the woman who's my editor now. So when they said that, my truth meter went off again. You know, it's like you get this, it's like something opens up from heaven, and this just feeling pours down through your crown chakra and into your body. And you're like, yes, this is it. This is directly, this person is God's mouth. You know, this person is saying exactly what I need to hear. And I knew from that moment that that it would work out. And so I jumped through the hoops I needed to jump through. I went, I did an interview. I pitched the books that I had, and she said, nope, what else you got? Nope, what else you got? Because I had, you know, a few books already finished that I hadn't done anything with yet. And so I just pitched by the seat of my pants. Well, you know, I've always thought that I would like to write a romance book with an animal communication theme, where the animals help their humans find forever love. And in the process, they find their own forever home. And she said, great, send me a proposal. And she said, but not just one book, I want the series. So I got to work. I plotted a 4-book series, and ultimately it was accepted. And so now I write for Source Books Casablanca. And I actually have, can I show you the books? Because I love my cover.
Absolutely.
So this is the first one.
Oh, it's beautiful.
The dog on the cover, I don't know if you can see, but that's my dog. That's my dog, Georgia. And she figures heavily in all the books. And then this is the second book, Magnolia Bay.
They're just gorgeous, Babette.
Aren't they beautiful?
They're
love
just
them.
Beautiful.
So
congratulations. I mean, I've been through the publication process, both traditional and hybrid self-publishing. And so I commend you for the amount of work that it just, and just the, you know, the creative, just the intuitive, the deep intuitive creative trust that we have to have with ourselves. Yes. When I published my first book, why am I losing? Not the editor, but the agent. Thank you, Shannon. Geez, brain cells, turn on. My agent at the time, she said, you know, I get contacted by so many people that say they want to write a book. And she says, no, they don't want to write a book. They need to write a book. If you need to write a book, you will. And I love your passion and how you're saying, you know, your truth meter goes on, and you've learned to trust that. That's the intuition we're talking about. That's whatever you call it. It doesn't matter. It's that inner knowing that can't be dissuaded. There is no argument strong enough to unknow that which we know in our gut brain. And
yep, you're right.
And that certainty you have about following your passion. I mean, what if we could do something and we could love our jobs? Like, what if our job and our passion could be one? I was raised in an environment where, you know, your job is what you do, and whatever it is that you do outside of your job is what you love. And that's just that's the structure to expect. And you know, that just has never worked out for me, because my job is where I spend most of my time. And if I don't love what I'm doing, maybe I can do it, but I'm probably not going to be excellent at it. And I'm not going to have the courage to tackle some of my deeper internal obstacles, because I'm not in love with it enough. It's like, if it went away, I'd be like, oh, you know, oh, well, let's go find something else that I also don't love. So the fact that you had the courage, not on one, but on two different fronts, to trust, and it's this deep self-trust that sometimes feels like it's lacking in our culture today, because we don't live in a culture where there's any automatic time carved out for self-reflection, for meditation, for just the good company of our own being, if that makes sense. So, I mean, I remember one time I can't remember who I was listening to at the time, one of my many mentors, I'm sure, and she was talking about, I think it was my yoga teacher, Adrienne, and she was talking about how, or no, it wasn't. It was Elizabeth Gilbert with her
I love
big
her.
magic book, her big magic
Yes.
book. And she
I
talks
love
about
that.
how the poet Mary Oliver would be out walking in the fields and get an idea, and she would try to race it home. She would try to get home to write the poem down before it got impatient with her and left to find somebody else who was ready to
Yes.
receive it.
And I
So
totally agree.
I'd love to hear more about your writing process. And it sounds like you got this seed of an idea and you kind of drafted out this 4-book series. But what is it like for you when because you're really bringing together animal communication and creative writing. So what is that like? We got a lot of budding writers who are listening who probably eat up whatever you're saying.
It's actually very similar, because you know, when you're communicating with an animal, you're basically you're channeling a lot of the time. You know, you're channeling their thoughts, their emotions, their images. You know, they're sending them to you. It's coming from them, but it's still, you have to be an open channel to receive it. And it's the very same thing when you're writing. Like, if I sit down and I'm not sure what I'm going to write, I sit on my little yoga cushion and close my eyes and just allow it to come to me, and just start basically dreaming, visualizing that scene. And when I write in my books, in my romance books, when I write from an animal's point of view, I'm also channeling it. It feels a lot like talking to an animal. It feels a lot the same, because I'm in their skin. And you know, a lot of writers feel, and I feel that the stories that we feel called to tell already exist on some plane. The characters who won't get out of your head, they already exist on some plane, and they're knocking at your door saying, I want you to write me. I want you to make me real to people. And so if you can get out of the way and become an open channel and just allow that character to pour into you, is very, very similar to animal communication, because you're opening yourself up to the information that is already there.
I love that analogy. It definitely reminds me of my songwriting days, because I had similar experiences to Mary Oliver and to you. To simply, you know, you're kind of going along and you're just becoming more and more and more aware of a presence, of an energy that feels really tangibly alive. It's just that you can't lay eyes on it out there anywhere. And it does take a level of trust. And what's so interesting about the meeting point between intuitive animal communication and creative writing is how you're inviting your right brain to the table in a really prominent way. So I'm thinking back to when I wrote songs, and chances are good if I was going to get a song idea on a given day, it would be when I was out in the field, so to speak, when I was taking a walk, or they love to come in the shower. Anytime I wasn't sitting down with my guitar or my piano and, and my pad of paper and my pen ready for it, whenever I was not ready would be the
Right.
time it would pick. And so do you have any writing rituals that kind of help you to, because that can be really
Yes.
intimidating for somebody who wants to write a book, and you sit down at the computer and you're like, okay, I'm waiting for it. When is it going to show up? What do I do? And you can just psych yourself completely out.
Yes, the blank page can be very intimidating. So there are a few things that I do. One is I use a program called Scrivener, and I guess, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it allows you to write on little note cards on the computer. And so before I write, I plot out the scenes. So I can just say, okay, in this scene, this happens. And I use that old, so this is blank wants blank because blank but blank. So it's your character. Your character wants something, and that's your goal, because blank, that's your motivation, but blank, that's your conflict. And so blank, here's what they do about it. And so if you can write that out on your little note card, my character wants this because this, but this, and so this is what they do. You're not sitting in front of a blank page. You know what has to happen in that.
Oh, that's a good one.
And so you can go scene by scene that way, because every scene is its own little story.
This is fascinating.
So, but the other thing I do is I make pottery. So if I'm really stumped, I go down in the basement where all of my clay and my slab roller and all that stuff is. And I just get my hands dirty, get my hands in the clay and roll something out, make something. And if it's terrible, then, you just kind of fold it up and put it back in the pot, and you can make something different out of it another day. But it's like you were saying about when you allow your mind to float, when you're out in the world doing something. I mean, gardening works too.
Did a ton of that this morning. Yep.
So yeah, allowing your brain to float and not even thinking about it. The story's needs come to you as you're doing other things. Driving is another good one. So getting out in the world helps too.
Absolutely. And then always having I've grown quite fond of my my little voice recorder on my, I'm not fancy enough to use anything like Evernote, but I have a little voice recorder on my iPhone, and that little thing is really easy to use, and I can sing into it or I can talk into it. And, just really allowing yourself to do something creative, to play, is what I'm hearing you share. And yes. I believe you had said something on your website about dance as well. Am I correct? And you were in ballet?
I taught ballet for about 10 years. And then when my son was old enough to go to kindergarten, I thought, well, this is not going to work, this schedule, because ballet teachers work from 3 in the afternoon or 2 in the afternoon to 9 at night. So I went back to school, got my master's degree in education. And, it's so interesting that and I'm sure that this is true with everybody if they really think about it, especially if you follow your passion and do the things that you're passionate about. Absolutely. Everything all ties together in the end. And so I used, I only taught for a couple of years, elementary school, but I used my knowledge of teaching and of structuring a class to write my book about animal communication. So, I made that book like a 12-week college level course where, there's a part where you say, here's what we're going to do. And then you lay it all out. Here's the teaching part, the lesson. And then a recap, here's what we did. And then your homework. And taking it week by week by week. And so I found that was very effective. And yeah, and I don't think I would have had the structure to write that book if I hadn't taught. So everything works together. It's just amazing how everything you do brings something to the table.
Yep. So if you're listening or you're watching right now and there's some part of your life that just isn't making sense, and I'll just give you an example. For me, it was my first job out of college, and I just, I look back, and every job after that until I got to the last decade or so, when I started working for myself as a freelance writer, and then I've added music and animal communication, all kinds of other things to the table. But so many of those years, I would just be like, what am I doing? Like, this doesn't make sense. And now I use so many of those skills, and I draw from so many of the life experiences that I had, and a lot of them were quite challenging. But animal communication, for when we first discover it, and we first get started with it, it can feel like something shiny and new, like a toy, like a fun new toy. And then we realize we're dealing with the deepest and most significant pieces of an individual's life: birth, death, divorce, separation, loneliness, and also all the bubbly, happy stuff, and the joy, and just the flow of a life. And so if you're in a part of your life right now where you're just like, gosh darn it, this, how did I get here? It can be really encouraging to hear from folks who resonate with that experience. And yet, today I look back, and you just said it, Babette, as well. We look back and we think, there was so much gold in that coal. Really, there
Yes.
were some, or that's probably the wrong analogy. There's so many diamonds in that coal, I think is probably a better analogy. You can tell I didn't do very well at geology and biology and all of that sort of thing. But, and just know that whatever your soul is calling you to, there's a way. And it's more about, when in a previous incarnation, that's kind of a joke because it was in this lifetime, but I founded and ran a charity for people with eating disorders. And we talked a lot about the left brain versus the right brain. And when we're faced, with an option A or option B, and neither one is appealing, always look exactly like what Babette is talking about today. Always look for an option C. There's something else that's a little better hidden, and it's going to take a little more effort. And that's where your soul's growth is. It's like, okay, I don't like option A, I don't like option B, there's an option C, but I need to look for it. I need to put on my soul eyes. I need to go inside. I need to take a walk in nature. I need to ask my light team, what am I missing here? Just help me to see this with new eyes. Help me to see the less traveled path. And it's also so important. We talked a lot about mentoring in this charity, and we talked about, no matter where you look, no matter what your ears hear, you're being mentored. So choose wisely. You're either going to be influenced by the folks who say that you can't, that it's not possible, or you'll be influenced by the folks that say you can, and it's a lovely dream, and they are so going to be your believing eyes. They are so going to be in your corner. So you have that option. So choose your mentors carefully, because you can find both sets of people out there. And most importantly, who you listen to and who you surround yourself with is going to influence how you mentor yourself. Because what we're listening to here with you, Babette, with your story, is that you've really taken the reins and you've mentored yourself. You've listened to the naysayers and you've said, you know what, that just doesn't resonate with me. So I'm going to have to go with my gut,
Right.
and you started to mentor yourself to go to say, yes, let's just see, let's just play and see how it unfolds, rather than deciding that we know in advance how something's going to work out that we haven't even started yet.
Exactly. And that's you bring up a good point about play, about, um, like, so one of the things when I teach animal communication, I encourage people to be lighthearted about it. Play with it. It's not, you don't have to be right. It's not about being right. And in fact, in the book, there's, one part where I say, these are the things that will free you are to say, I could be wrong. That's so freeing to say, okay, well, here's what I got. I could be wrong, but here's what I got. And, and it's a challenge, and it can be scary. When I talk to someone's animals, I type up a transcript as I go, because typing for me, because I'm a writer, typing is a bit like channeling. And so I have a picture of the animal, and I'm looking into their eyes, and I'm asking the questions, and I'm just typing. And sometimes you get things that are, if you're wrong, you're dead wrong. You get things that are, you get detail that is undeniable to you when you feel it. But it's a little bit scary to hit send on that transcript, because the person could, and I've actually had people say, well, that's not right. That's, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
And then a couple of days later, they'll come back and say, oh, I figured it out. I know what it is now. So, you have to trust yourself enough to be real, to be, what's the word I'm searching for? Well, just to be truthful about what you got. No matter.
To receive what comes in versus to allow your left brain to, I often tell my students that animal communication is what happens in the space between your thoughts, which is why meditation can be so essential to have a truly deep and meaningful, accurate conversation. It's not about making it make sense, because that's the job for the animal's person. But it's about receiving it accurately, without any filters, once your left brain pounces on something the animal says, I see that the information, the data turn into a cat toy. It's like they're just sort of like a tennis ball or something, and they're just, your mind is playing around with it and trying to put all the pieces together. And sometimes the animal is going to be cryptic. Sometimes the animal's reality is so different. And I love to use the classic analogy of the dog whose favorite toy is the yellow bird. And this came from one of my animal communication teachers, and she's talking about how this dog told the animal communicator that their favorite toy was a yellow bird, and the dog's person was horrified. They were like, no, we don't give our dog yellow birds to play with. Turns out the dog was referring to a yellow tennis ball.
Mm-hmm.
Because in his reality, anything that was so quick and yellow and flew over his head had to be a bird. And he was so proud of being able to jump up. So it's like, we have to sit with this information. We have to unpack it. We have to unfold it. Sometimes we have to sit with it for a while.
Yes.
And it's about that willingness to receive. And it's not a test. This is not our formal classroom years where everything is pass or fail. It's an A or a B or C or an D or an F. I wonder where the E went. But my dad, when he was little, he would get, they used to have E, and I can't remember what it stood for. And he would tell his dad it stood for excellent. When it meant like extra probably. I can't remember, but that was a little aside. But it's so important to realize that animal communication is teaching us or reteaching us, if we will, to use all of our sensory pathways and to invite our right brain to the party again.
Yes. Well,
Which
and
is where I think the writing is so key with you. The writing and the dancing, the ballet, and just being in your body, because it's really hard to communicate with animals if you're not in your body. And most of us aren't.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, another thing that you made me think of is because you were saying about how the left brain wants to come in and you know, have its little say. And a lot of times that is the first thing you get. And I've heard psychics, or, you know, not just animal communicators, but people who talk about psychic abilities, which, and I think that's not really the same thing. But anyway, you know, they'll say, oh, the first thing you get is likely to be correct. And I don't think that's true, because I think the first thing you get is usually your left brain going, well, I think it could be this. And so you have to say, well, thank you for sharing. Go sit in your corner. Now I'm going to see what the animal has to say, because, you know, when your brain starts trying to go in and make up scenarios, you know, you're not even left of center. You're not even in the ballpark. So
that's an interesting point. And it's, you know, it's really worth, again, playing with it to see, because everybody, like you said in the beginning, everybody has their own unique way of communicating with animals. And over time, the coolest part about it, one of the many coolest parts about it, is that we start to really work with ourselves, and we learn what our tells are, and we learn what our cues are from within. We can feel that truth meter that you call it. We can feel it. We can start to feel, wait a minute, I can tell when it's my left brain interfering, trying to save me from, you know, whatever it thinks that I'm about to get exposed to, ridicule, or what, shame, embarrassment, guilt, whatever it is, public ridicule, versus when it's my gut saying, this is the thing. This is the thing that you need to pass along. So we are just about out of time. Those of you who are listening and you're like, what the heck are they talking about? Intuitive pathways, right brain, left brain. I do want to encourage you to head over to animallovelanguages.com. Under Learn With Me, free tools, there is a 5-day free animal communication camp. You can learn about 5 of the major sensory pathways, and a 4-part intuitive pet parent workshop that's also free, and includes a really fun tool called Meditate on Your Pet that I absolutely love, that I learned while I was in India. And I also want to encourage you to head over to Babette's website. And if you like to read, this is the place to go. This is the place to go. Not only can you learn about animal communication, you can learn animal communication, but you can read about it in a really fun, I would say, playful, right brain centric way that will open up some of these intuitive pathways and really start noticing like how your right brain creates a whole world out of just black and white written words on the page. Like, how is that even possible? This is a big part of learning animal communication. So it would benefit you to enjoy Magnolia Bay. Is that what it's called? The series Magnolia Bay?
The series is Welcome to Magnolia Bay.
Welcome to Magnolia Bay, which just sounds wonderful. So it's Babette de Jongh. Sorry, there I go again, because I've been trying it out in my Babette de Jongh. I got it this time because I've been practicing it in my head before coming on the series, because you and I started talking a few weeks ago, and I was like, okay, well, so my left brain just decided it knew how to say it. Babette de Jongh, and it's spelled D. If you're listening right now and you're not sure, it's Babette, and the last name is DeJongh.com, and I will also include that in the show notes.
Thank you.
So, Babette, thank you so much for being here and being a part. If we had more time, I would have you read an excerpt, but you can do that on the website for those of you who are listening or watching. And also from myself and Pearl Cutts, here at Animal Love Languages. If you've enjoyed today's episode, we have so many more amazing guests, amazing episodes over at the website. You can just click on the podcast link and you can listen or watch to your heart's content. We have so many different ways to experience animal communication. If you're looking for a teacher, if you're looking for a practitioner, if you're looking for energy work, if you're looking for creativity, I promise you will find somebody that is a wonderful fit for what you're looking for. And of course, if you're looking for Pearl, you can find him as well. Please share this podcast with a friend that loves animals, that you think would enjoy learning about animal communication. Please give us a 5-star or a 50-star review if that's available in your area. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next week when we have another wonderful guest here on Let's Talk to Animals. Okay, Babette, it has been a joy to chat with you. Thank you for donating your time to be a part of the show. Absolutely. And we will see you again soon. Okay, bye for now.